Hi, everybody. Welcome back for another dispatch. So I was just listening to, this is the book I'm going to read from David Bohm on creativity. It's a collection of some essays. I was just listening to a conversation between Samantha Sweetwater on the podcast, The Great Simplification with Nate Higgins. She's great. And she just came out with a new book, True Human. And anyway, she was bringing in something from David Bohm, and I thought, oh, that sounds good. And I had this on my shelf, and uh, he'd been referenced before. He was a physicist, and he was had some conversations with Krishnamurti that were recorded. You can find on YouTube, worth listening to. Um, so. Yes, Samantha Sweetwater mentioned an implicate order. That's David Bohm wrote about that. That there is an implied sense of order, or actual order, or wholeness in the universe. Implied meaning like it's not explicit. It's underneath or inside the explicit. My understanding of explicit, implicit really changed after reading The Master and His Emissary by Ian McGilchrist. Anyway, so yeah, it's a great conversation. She's wonderful, and talking about what's next. How do we go from here? And for us, what does that mean as painters? Well, she doesn't talk about that, but I'm thinking about that. What is what is all that? Okay. Ah, this was turned around the other way. Do we need to start again? Hello? Hope you heard me. We'll find out. Okay. It seems I'm skipping the very beginning. I'm going to read a few pages. It seems then that the answer to the question of why the scientists are so deeply interested in their work is not to be found on such a superficial level. Scientists are seeking something that is much more significant to them than pleasure. One aspect of what this something might be can be indicated by noting that the search is ultimately aimed at the discovery of something new that had previously been unknown. But of course, it is not merely the novel experience of working on something different and out of the ordinary that the scientist wants. This would indeed be little more than another kind of kick. Rather, what he is really seeking is to learn something new that has a certain fundamental kind of significance, a hitherto unknown lawfulness in the order of nature, which exhibits unity in a broad range of phenomena. Thus, he wishes to find in the reality in which he lives a certain oneness and totality, or wholeness, constituting a kind of harmony that is felt to be beautiful. In this respect, the scientist is perhaps not basically different from the artist, the architect, the musical composer, etc., who all want to create this kind of thing in their work. To be sure, the scientist emphasizes the aspect of discovering oneness and totality in nature. For this reason, the fact that his work can also be creative is often overlooked. But in order to discover oneness and totality, the scientist has to create the new overall structure of ideas which are needed to express the harmony and beauty that can be found in nature. Likewise, he has to create the sensitive instruments which aid perception and thus make possible both the testing of new ideas for their truth or falsity and the disclosure of new and unexpected kinds of facts. So he's got to create these things in order to discover what's in existence, the wholeness that's in existence. And I think as an artist, we're creating something new, but in order to do that, we have to recognize a wholeness that's already there in us in order to navigate the painting to that. So now we have seen that the artist, the musical composer, the architect, the scientist all feel a fundamental need to discover and create something new that is whole and total, harmonious and beautiful. Few ever get a chance to try to do this, and even fewer actually manage to do it. Yet deep down, it is probably what very large numbers of people in all walks of life are seeking when they attempt to escape the daily humdrum routine by engaging in every kind of entertainment, excitement, stimulation, change of occupation, and so forth, through which they ineffectively try to compensate for the unsatisfying narrowness and mechanicalness of their lives. Is creativity then something that is appropriate only to a few people of special talents who rise to a level that is commonly called genius? Clearly, it is not all a matter of special talent, for there are a tremendous number of highly talented people who remain mediocre. Thus, there must have been a considerable body of scientists who were better at mathematics and knew more physics than Einstein did. The difference was that Einstein had a certain quality of originality. But what is this quality of originality? It is very hard to define or specify. Indeed, to define originality would in itself be a contradiction, since whatever action can be defined in this way must evidently henceforth be unoriginal. Perhaps then it will be best to hint at it obliquely and by indirection, rather than to try and assert positively what it is. One prerequisite for originality is clearly that a person shall not be inclined to impose his preconceptions on the fact as he sees it. Rather, he must be able to learn something new, even if this means that the ideas and notions that are comfortable or dear to him may be overturned. But the ability to learn in this way is a principle common to the whole of humanity. Thus, it is well known that a child learns to walk, to talk, and to know his way around the world just by trying something out and seeing what happens. It's in italics. Painters, then modifying what he does or thinks in accordance with what has actually happened. In this way, he spends his first few years in a wonderfully creative way, discovering all sorts of things that are new to him. And this leads people to look back on childhood as a kind of lost paradise. As the child grows older, however, learning takes on a narrower meaning. In school, he learns by repetition to accumulate knowledge so as to please the teacher and pass examinations. At work, he learns in a similar way so as to make a living or for some other utilitarian purpose, and not mainly for the love of the action of learning itself. So his ability to see something new and original gradually dies away, and without it, there is evidently no ground from which anything can grow. It is impossible to overemphasize the significance of this kind of learning in every phase of life. And the importance of giving the action of learning itself top priority ahead of the specific content of what it is to be learned. And the importance of giving the action of learning itself top priority ahead of the specific content of what is to be learned. For the action of learning is the essence of real perception, in the sense that without it, a person is unable to see in any new situation what is a fact and what is not. Right? If I'm not going to overlay my preconception, I've got to be open and learn what is new here. What is now? A couple more paragraphs and then. Of course, there is a routine and mechanical kind of perception that we carry out habitually in dealing with what is familiar. This is generally what we tend to do. For instance, few people ever note more than a small number of habitually determined salient features of their friends, of the places in which they live, and so on. But real perception that is capable of seeing something new and unfamiliar requires that one be attentive, alert, aware, and sensitive. In this frame of mind, one does something, perhaps only to move the body or handle an object, and then one notes the difference between what actually happens and what is inferred from previous knowledge. From this difference, one is led to a new perception or a new idea that accounts for the difference. And this process can go on indefinitely, without beginning or end, in any field whatsoever. One thing that prevents us from thus giving primary emphasis to the perception of what is new and different is that we are afraid to make a mistake. We are afraid to make mistakes. From early childhood, one is taught to maintain the image of self or ego as essentially perfect. Each mistake seems to reveal that one is an inferior sort of being who will therefore in some way not be fully accepted by others. This is very unfortunate. For, as has been seen, all learning involves trying something and seeing what happens. If one will not try anything until he is assured that he will not make a mistake in whatever he does, he will never be able to learn anything new at all. And this is more or less the state in which most people are. Such a fear of making a mistake is added to one's habits of mechanical perception in terms of preconceived ideas and learning only for specific utilitarian purposes. Goes on. Stop. It's good. It's good. So there you go. Let's all go make mistakes. Truly, right? Like, it's a nice way to put it. You know, like in the studio, no one gets hurt, right? I can make all the mistakes I want. And I mean, let's just make mistakes. Let's try making let's try it. Why not? And then see, maybe there's some implicit wholeness that starts to glimmer through the cracks of the mistakes or something. All right. Hope you're all well. Make stuff, make mistakes, make more stuff. I'll talk to y'all later.